The greatest lie you were told about Jesus was not about his divinity, it was that he was weak. The truth is, he was offered absolute power, the chance to lead the violent rebellion his entire nation craved. What if he had said, "Yes, we live in a world that believes violent struggle is the only way to solve problems. In our politics, on social media, even in our personal relationships." We will now explore the catastrophic consequences of that alternate choice. To uncover vital lessons about when to put down the sword and how to find true strength in radical, nonviolent resistance. To understand the crushing pressure behind that choice, we must first look at the furnace that forged this historical moment. Jesus of Nazareth. Not just a spiritual teacher, but a forbidden name carrying the title of Messiah, King. His most dangerous idea was to challenge power without becoming the very thing he fought against. The setting is Judea, suffocating under the iron grip of the Roman Empire. Despair was rampant, economic oppression and the public terror of crucifixion was everywhere. The people were not just looking for hope, they were looking for a general to lead the zealot movement. The central question was, can a corrupt system be destroyed using the very tools that built it? Violence, domination. In this alternate timeline, Jesus accepts the role of revolutionary. His lesson would become the tragic cost of sacrificing inner peace for an outer victory. The desert wind was a furnace, scouring his skin with hot dust. 40 days in the wilderness had stripped him to the bone, but the physical hunger was nothing compared to the fire consuming his mind. The shadow that stood before him wore no horns or tail. It wore the shape of logic. It whispered in a smooth, reasonable voice, gesturing to the world below. "They are weeping," it said. "They suffer under the boot of Rome. They pray for a Messiah, but they do not need a philosopher. They need a general. They do not need a lamb. They need a lion." It gestured again. The kingdoms of the world spread out like a map, the legions, the treasuries, the thrones. "You only have to nod," the voice seduced. "Take the sword. Your people are waiting. You can end their oppression. You can build a kingdom of justice right here, right now, with iron and with blood." Jesus of Nazareth closed his eyes. He saw the crucifixions. He heard the bite of the lash. He felt the desperation of a cornered people, the zealots, sharpening their blades in the dark, waiting for a divine spark. He was taught to love his enemy, but what good was love against a gladius? He had been offered absolute power. He opened his eyes. The exhaustion was gone, replaced by a cold resolve. He nodded. The sword appeared in his hand. It did not glow with divine light. It was not magic. It was just steel, cold, heavy, a tool. The desert itself seemed to hold its breath. History had just fractured. The news spread like wildfire. The teacher had returned from the desert, not with parables about lilies and birds, but with a call to arms. "I have come," he declared to the roaring crowds in Galilee, "not to bring peace, but a sword. The kingdom of heaven will be taken by violence, and the violent will claim it." The zealots poured from their caves. They found in him not just a holy man, but a terrifyingly brilliant strategist. He unified the fractured rebel cells into a single, disciplined, fervent army. He turned fishermen into captains, and his apostles were now his generals. The assault on Jerusalem was not a peaceful procession on a donkey. It was a storm. They attacked at night during the Passover, when the city was packed with pilgrims and the Roman patrols were thin. The cry of Hosanna was not a welcome, it was a war cry. Jesus, now wearing hardened leather armor over his simple robes, led the charge himself against the fortress Antonia. He no longer turned the other cheek. He raised the sword. Blood slicked the temple steps, Roman blood, collaborator blood. The slaughter was horrific, but it was effective. By dawn, the Roman eagle had been torn down. Jerusalem was free. The warrior king sat on the throne of David. The initial victory was sweet, but it tasted of iron. The new kingdom was founded, but it was built on blood. To keep it, it required more. The old teachings of mercy and forgiveness were silenced, dismissed as weakness, unfit for a time of war. Love your enemy became destroy your enemy before he destroys you. 5 years passed. The fledgling kingdom of Judea was in a state of constant war. Roman legions relentlessly probed its borders. The warrior king's rule was not one of liberation, it was one of permanent martial law. He sat on the throne, but there was no peace. The palace was cold. His former disciples were strangers. Judas, his treasurer, now taxed the people more heavily than Rome ever had, all to fund the war. James and John had become brutal enforcers, purging anyone suspected of dissent. And then Peter, his rock, Peter, now General Simon, the one who had drawn his sword in the garden, a garden where, in this timeline, no arrest ever took place. He came to the king, not with reverence, but with horror in his eyes. "My king," Peter knelt, but his voice trembled with fury. "What have we done? We crucified 30 Samaritans for refusing to pay the war tax. We have become the thing we hated. This is not the kingdom you promised." Jesus looked down at his oldest friend. He saw the truth in Peter's eyes, and he could not bear it. The truth was a threat. Doubt was treason. The kingdom had to be protected. "Unity requires sacrifice," the warrior king said, his voice as cold as the steel at his hip. He no longer recognized himself. "He who is not with me is against me," he signaled the guards. On the day of Peter's execution, the warrior king watched from a high window. Peter did not curse him. He only looked up, one last time, with an infinite sadness. "Forgive them," Peter whispered, not to his executioners, but to the king who had once been his teacher, "for they know not what they do." In that moment, the warrior king realized the horrifying truth. The tool of violence does not just change the enemy, it changes the user. By taking up the sword of Rome, he had become Caesar. He had gained Jerusalem, but he had lost his soul. The collapse came quickly. The Roman legions, this time commanded by a young, ruthless general named Titus, returned with overwhelming force. The kingdom, already rotting from within by fear and paranoia, shattered. His generals, loyal only to power, betrayed him to save themselves. The final battle was on a desolate hill outside the burning city. His army was gone. He stood alone, his armor dented, his sword bloody and heavy. A Roman cohort approached. Their centurion stepped forward, drawing his own sword. Jesus looked at the blade in his hand. The tool. It had bought him a 5-year kingdom. It had brought him revenge, power, and control. And it had turned his disciples into monsters, and him into a tyrant. He realized the true message was never about conquering the world. It was about transcending it. The only kingdom that could not be conquered was the one built within the heart. With a final ragged breath, the warrior king let his sword fall. It clattered on the stones. The centurion paused, confused by this sudden surrender. Jesus did not look at him. He looked at the smoke rising from the horizon. He had failed. The warrior king died on that hill. He was forgotten, a mere footnote in the annals of Rome about another failed Jewish revolt. His kingdom turned to ash, and Jerusalem was razed. The tragedy of the warrior king is not just an alternate history. It is a mirror, reflecting our own daily choices. His story offers a profound lesson. First, a change in mindset. Outer victory is temporary. Inner peace is absolute. The path of violence gave him a 5-year kingdom. The path of peace, the one he rejected, created a 2,000-year philosophy. For us, this means we must stop trying to force an outcome, whether it is winning an argument or demanding a promotion. We must focus instead on mastering our own response, our patience, our integrity. That is the only fortress that can never be breached. The second lesson is a practical tool. Non-resistance. Turning the other cheek was never about being weak. It was about breaking the cycle of violence. The goal is not to be a doormat. It is to break the feedback loop of retaliation. When you receive that hostile email, do not just hit reply all in anger. Practice conscious drafting. Write the furious response, feel it, and then delete it and reply instead with clarity and curiosity. The final lesson is one of perspective. Your true purpose lies beyond the battlefield. The warrior king died in failure and was forgotten. The teacher lives on through every quiet act of compassion. So, where are you looking for validation? In your job title, your salary, your social media feed? Those things are Rome. Your true meaning is found in the quiet, unseen work of cultivating your own inner kingdom. The tragedy proves that the ultimate answer to suffering is not to destroy your opponent, but to transform yourself into someone who can no longer be defeated by outside forces. We have seen how easily the crown becomes a burden and the sword becomes a master. The path of violence was rejected in our history, not because it was impossible, but because it was and is morally and philosophically unsustainable. The lesson is clear. Real power does not come from what you can do to others. It comes from what you can control within yourself. So, the next time you face a conflict, a toxic colleague, an unjust situation, do not be so quick to draw your sword. Take a breath, and for just 5 minutes, choose radical non-resistance. In that moment, let the world break itself against your quiet strength. And ask yourself this: what external validation are you clinging to right now that is stopping you from finding the unconquerable kingdom within?